Welcome back to Eagle Mom Squad. Today we're going to be talking about musical careers for your homeschoolers. Last time we addressed how to prepare for a landscape architect career or a career in horticulture with an experienced homeschool mom who is a landscape architect. Make sure you check that out. Today I want to introduce myself. I'm Edie Sarnoff, one of the co-founders of Eagle Mom Squad. I'm a musician. And when I think about musical careers, there are as many as there are musicians to do them. You could be a classical performer, a conductor, a composer of all kinds of different music. You could be a songwriter. You could perform folk or rock or gospel or bluegrass. You could help others. You could teach music. You could research music and write about them, be a professor. You could lead ensembles. You could be in an orchestra or a small ensemble. You could be a church musician. You could be a choir director, a chorus director, an opera singer. The list goes on and on. You could be an audio technician. You could be a sound engineer. But for all of these careers, the most important thing to do right now while you're homeschooling and you have time is to spend time practicing your art, enjoying it. It's not always easy to practice, but the more time you prepare, the more prepared you'll be, no matter what career you end up in. I'm a musicologist, so I got an advanced degree. I started my own nonprofit arts and history organization with concert series and educational workshops and so forth. And I also, am a performer of historical music, so I work with other people to present music, and I also teach and give what I know from other teachers onto new generations. So that's one avenue. We're going to hear from Ginny Martin, who is a successful homeschool mom and raised some wonderful musicians doing all kinds of different things, and also from a homeschooler who has gone on to a successful music career. I hope you enjoy them. Welcome everyone to our second in our series about careers. This is Ginny Martin joining us today. She's homeschooled her 4 children. And from the beginning, were they always homeschooled? Or?
One child went to school for about 2 years.
Okay, about my track record. But today we're concentrating on musicianship. You raised wonderful musicians. What have they been doing lately?
Well, the oldest child played trumpet, and he did not use it in a professional way, but he has played in church, and he sings in church. We all sang together as a family, so they all used their singing talents as well. Second child is a piano major. She was a piano major. She has a DMA in piano. She's taught in several colleges. And she's done a lot of accompanying at the college level as well. The third one was a trombone major, and he is a professional trombonist, plays with the American Pops Orchestra and many other freelances with many other organizations in the Northern Virginia, Washington, D.C. area. Okay. He also teaches trombone. And our youngest daughter, she majored in French horn. She has a bachelor's from Peabody, and she decided to use her training to teach young people. So she is taught in schools as a music educator in schools, and she's also done private lessons.
That's fantastic. How in the world did you get from kindergarten or earlier to this very successful music careers? What first did you offer in music training?
Well, as a family, we always had music playing in our home. The joke was they would play marching to the operas, the marches from the operas, and we had mostly classical music and folk music, that kind of thing, playing in our home, and we always sang together. I played the piano a little, and I play the guitar a little. So we had that going, and they always all of them enjoyed music. So it seemed natural for them to want to go forward with it and take up an instrument. We always thought of piano first. And so the two girls especially started out with piano lessons. Our oldest daughter was about 7. I guess they were probably both about 7 when they started piano lessons.
Okay. And how did you find the outside, or did you teach them piano?
Well, I started out to. I thought, well, I can do the preliminaries.
Sure.
I quickly found out that I had a lot of bad habits.
Oh,
And
okay.
that I wasn't the best one to be teaching them. And it was also too easy to say, well, we can't do it today. Let's do it tomorrow.
Absolutely right.
So it was much more structured for us to go to a teacher.
Right.
And so they each had piano teachers. And, fortunately, we found the teacher that was a good fit for them. And we stuck with that teacher until we felt that they were getting beyond
Right.
what that teacher could offer them, and then they moved on to another teacher.
And how did they explore their instruments as homeschoolers? I mean, in public school, obviously, the music department is set up to give them an experience on each instrument so they can choose around 4th grade. But for homeschoolers, how did you do it?
Well, and fortunately, in our school district, Upper Adams, they allowed the homeschoolers to participate fully in the music program.
Nice.
So when they had their summer sampler for instruments, our children were able to go and try out the different instruments that were offered. I think they kind of had it in their minds what they wanted to play.
Okay.
I don't know how they chose, but the instrument that they chose is the one they stayed with, which doesn't always happen.
Right, yeah.
And we were very fortunate in that. And then they were able to go to the lessons that the school offered and the band that the school offered. And they went to that. That was how they started.
Right.
But as we moved forward and they were more, it was obvious that they needed more than a 20-minute lesson, with a group.
Right.
And they were wanting to move on forward, and they were practicing, and so the band directors really liked having them,
Right.
because they were helping bring the other children along, which was nice.
Which must have helped them later when they were teaching.
Yes.
They had
And
experience.
they then they also as they played we found them private teachers then.
Right.
Usually it was either a retired school teacher or someone that was more versed in their instrument. So we did find them private teachers, and then so we moved to different teachers depending on the situation. But later on, we found a community band that allowed them to come and play. Now, they were young. They had played maybe in the school for maybe 1 or 2 years, and the community band was just like, sure, come on, play with us.
That's great. The flexibility.
It
of
was
community
wonderful.
bands,
Yeah, it was wonderful. And they were like grandma and grandpas
All right.
and to the children, and they loved having the children there. And, when the children first started playing with them, maybe they were playing every 4th note. But they were playing.
But all around them was the structure.
All around them was and those seasoned players were pulling the children along.
Right.
And
right.
they got, they picked it up really quickly. And
Were they self-motivated in their practicing, or did you really have to set a schedule, or?
They were self-motivated, I'll be honest with you, except for the oldest son. And as I told you before, he liked playing his instrument. The other ones lived it.
They lived it.
They did. That was like the thing for them.
Right.
So it really wasn't hard to get them to practice. Piano, maybe a little bit at first.
Mm-hmm.
We had to kind of set a structure, and this is your time, and you are going to practice 20 minutes.
Okay, so
when you
set
first started.
Time schedule.
And then we had to have schedules because we had a lot of people practicing a lot of instruments.
Right. And large families, that can be difficult too.
And sometimes somebody was upstairs practicing trumpet or whatever, and somebody's downstairs practicing piano at the same time.
And you're trying to talk on the telephone.
That was fun. But those days were great. They were great.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, so we found community orchestra
Okay.
at colleges. Both Gettysburg College and Shippensburg University have college community orchestra, and they allowed them to come and play with that as they became better. Then they also found we also found the Harrisburg Youth Symphony.
Nice.
They had to audition for that, but they played in that for a couple of years.
And was the homeschool orchestra in our area started yet when your kids were young?
No.
Okay.
There
'Cause
was
that's
a
common.
homeschool choir.
Okay.
There was a homeschool choir in Carlisle, and we went and sang in that as well when they were younger for several years.
I was going to ask you about singing. Did they do any singing? Was that a natural
yeah.
part of your homeschool
It
life?
was a natural part of our lives. We sang as a family in church. We sang at nursing home programs.
Oh, okay.
We sang at like community programs. Sometimes we would do this Star Spangled Banner
Nice.
for intros and so forth. So we practiced a lot as a family, singing, and sometimes we would even let Dad join.
I see. Can be dangerous.
It was.
But it sounds like you were really focusing as a family on a product that you would have to have the different parts.
Yes.
They would have to practice their individual parts, come together, or did you just get together and work it out?
We worked it out. We would
Okay.
practice it as a family.
How young
Yeah.
were they when you started that?
They were very young. I mean, we went to we sang at the nursing home ever since our youngest daughter was maybe 4. So they were somewhere between 4 and 10.
Wow, that's great.
And we would practice different singing and get program ready to go with a group from our church that would go and do programs.
Oh, I see. It was through the church.
That was through our church that we were in at that time had a school, and they would take the school and they would take us to the nursing home. And then we as a family started our own nursing home program, and we went to a specific nursing home every month.
Okay.
So we had the whole program. That way they could play their individual instruments, they could play together, and then we could also sing.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's really nice.
Yeah.
And I wondered how as they got older, did they have a lot more time in music preparation that you had to pull them into their other subjects? Stop practicing so you can do your math problems. I don't know.
Well, with us, school pretty much came first.
Okay.
And then once their schoolwork was finished, then they had their time to practice. So we didn't really, unless there was a specific, if they were getting ready for an audition or something like that, then they may have worked more time at that than they did at their schoolwork. But we would work that out time-wise. So mostly it was school first and then music.
They're so successfully in academia now, 3 of them. How did you prepare for their auditions or their applications to music schools and departments?
Each school would have their own requirements. So, just being careful to know what the requirements are, what they want to hear, what they want to see. It was interesting. The one school, we took a whole portfolio of our son's work, and we were going to, because we were homeschooling, we thought, they would, and they didn't even want to see it. They were like perfectly fine with him coming and interviewing, and then also auditioning. That was Duquesne. They also, it was funny because they had him. They were like, "Oh, if you come here, we want you to be a tour guide."
Oh,
they just liked his personality, and
that's great.
Yeah, it was funny.
That's really funny. So, and what about theory? Because I know you said your daughter has a certificate in theory. Mm-hmm. I know that's part of getting into music schools. Did you specially focus on that
I'm glad you asked me that because there, of course, there was always theory in their lessons,
Right.
both piano and in their major instrument. But there were a couple things that we did. Our daughter did, through Pennsylvania Homeschoolers, she did the AP Music Theory.
Oh, great. Okay.
And she was so successful, she got a 5 on that.
Nice.
So that's the highest score you can get.
Is that the one who has the certificate now?
Yes.
Yeah, that's great.
Of course.
She had a focus interest in that.
Yes, yes. And then our other 2 musicians, James and Joy, they were playing in the Gettysburg College Orchestra and Band.
Okay.
And so a lot of times, this is just a word of advice, a lot of times just ask. If you think that there might be a possibility that they can do something, it doesn't hurt to ask. The worst that can happen is get a no. But I went to the music department. I asked them if they could audit music theory at the college level, since they were giving to the college of their time and talents. And they said yes, they could. They got in the class. There was one other high schooler in that class that was coming from a public school. And it was interesting. Those 3 got A's in that class. And the teacher was not easy on them at all.
Interesting.
She was a little bit on the skeptical side as far as homeschooling goes. But I think once she saw the effort that they put into it and their abilities, I think her mind was changed by the end of the class. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I just wondered what challenges you may have faced, financial challenges with these instruments and lessons, driving.
Yes. I said I have a 4-year degree in waiting.
Right.
Because I would sit and wait for them at their lessons, at their rehearsals, and all of that. But so that's scheduling of the lessons, and especially because we had 4 taking lessons and going to this group and that group, and I'd say mostly 3 when they were going to so many different groups. We had 3 of them. We had 3 in college at once.
Wow.
That was challenging. And as a musician, it's not a good idea to have a large school bill when you get out of school, because you're going to be a struggling musician. You might as well face it. Thankfully, we have one, actually a couple of them that have gone full-time professional, but it's very difficult. Very difficult to get in, especially if you're going to be a freelancer, and be playing in different groups. But so we made sure that we tried our very best to have a lot of scholarships.
Yeah.
And I was able to go to the school and look at their list of scholarships that were available to them, and I got a lot of ideas from that and other places. And we applied. We applied to so many scholarships just to try to, and the schools actually offered them scholarships because they were really good at their instruments.
Right, that always, so all those hours put into practicing and ensemble work
paid off.
That's going to pay off.
It did pay off, because especially the 2 younger ones, they got substantial scholarships.
Right, that's great.
And they were in quite expensive schools.
Right, so that's great that they...
Yeah.
So in summing up, Ginny, do you have any tips or advice for homeschool parents whose kids are just starting in music, or they'd like to encourage them, or they're deep in it and they want them to be able to pursue that?
Just giving them the opportunities that they think they might want to pursue, and they may or may not continue on with one certain instrument. They may change. But they get that value of practicing, of being consistent, and I just felt like if you're going to do this, you're going to practice. I tried to make it so that it wasn't an egregious amount of time, but that just teaching them diligence, and the instruments create that situation where they have to be so focused on what they're
Right.
doing, which is very good for their brains.
Right.
But that, and as I said before, it doesn't hurt to ask. If you want an opportunity for your child, go for it. One example was we were at Independence Hall. Our daughter had been learning some Bach, and she was getting very good at it. And we were getting a tour, and I asked the tour guide if she could play the harpsichord at Independence Hall.
Nice.
And the tour guide kind of looked around, see if anybody was looking.
Right.
She's like, sure, go ahead. And she actually got to play the harpsichord at Independence Hall.
Wow.
So, because I asked.
It was a great tour for the others too.
Yeah,
to hear it.
yeah. And of course, the people that were there were clapping for her. And that was kind of cool. Another example was there was a group of children that were going to sing for the 200th anniversary of our county. And they were in an organized group, but it was a public event. And I called the director and asked him if they could audition and if they could join with the group. And he auditioned them and took them all, and they got to sing with the other group of children that were singing for that.
So just ask.
Ask, and you get these really cool experiences for your children.
Because people don't expect that they'll be in the position to be, good enough to be participating. So you have to make a way for them because
Right.
their talent
Right.
and their level of achievement.
Right.
So
Well, one time I took them to he was the conductor, director of a nearby college orchestra, and I took them as children to play for him. I asked him if he would listen to them and if he would give me advice
nice.
as to what I should do. And he listened to them, and he was like so super impressed. But he told me they need professional teachers.
Right.
And he told me my son needed a better instrument. And he
Very
gave
helpful.
me really great advice. And later, since he knew them, and then they started playing in his orchestra as older children,
Okay.
later he did programs that featured them
Oh, nice.
as the soloists.
That's great.
So.
Very nice. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. This will be very helpful, I hope. And it was great to see you.
Thank you.
Hey guys, my name is Rebecca Foster. I'm from Gettysburg, PA, and I'm a musician. So that is my main passion. I've been doing music now, playing music, writing music for about almost 10 years now. So that was back in 2014, 2013, around that area when I really started playing music. So just to give some background, I don't know if I mentioned, I was born into a very large family. I'm actually one of 9. Pretty crazy, but super fun. Most of my family is incredibly musical. So yeah, I was kind of just surrounded by different genres growing up. So I was surrounded by classical music, rock music, and opera. And then I personally had a taste for R&B, I should say. Rhythm and blues, and jazz predominantly. So I think my first performance was when I was 12 years old, and that really gave me a taste for like wanting to play out. So then, the years following, I actually took up guitar lessons, and that's really when I got my start, was when I started playing songs on guitar. So my first real gig, if you want, realish gig, I guess, was coffee shops. So I played a lot of open mics at coffee shops, and then it just grew from there. So word of mouth spread. And today I've done music festivals. I've actually played at the World Cafe in Philadelphia. I do weddings. I do, I'll play at bars, I'll do private parties, I'll do wineries. So just a lot of events like that. That's what I do currently. I have 2 records out. So my first record was with a band I joined in 2014 called Run the Willow. It was like an indie folk band, and I was actually the drummer in that, interestingly enough. So I I was the drummer and backup vocalist. So I was playing drums and doing the backup vocals. So I did that for about 5 years. And we put out a CD during that time called A Living Dichotomy. It's actually on Spotify and, you know, Google Play or whatever it's called. So yeah, you can check that out there if you're interested. And then in 2019, I produced a record of my own called Empty Sky. And that was just a compilation of songs that I had written throughout the years. And then just this year, I put out 2 songs with my current band, Two to Fly. It's actually a rock and roll band, which is so much fun, and I'm the lead singer in that. So currently I do mostly solo stuff. Like I'll play, you know, I'll play bars and stuff just with me and my guitar. I have a band called the Rebecca Foster Band, and then Two to Fly. So that's what I'm doing currently. I'm in 2 bands, and then I have my solo stuff. So yeah, that's I think that about sums it up. So yeah, thanks for listening.
I'm gonna play another original song here. This one's called The Power. People gave me a fair chance before they went running off to some other foreign land, and it hurt. Every time I held on tight, that's when they started running for their lives, and I didn't want to hold them back, so I never put up a fight, but it hurt. It's not all peaches and cream, trusting someone new, but you got something that makes me want you. I gave you the power to hurt me. You have my heart, but that don't mean a thing. You have the knife and I'm standing right in front of you. You can make me bleed, so be careful what you do. When I wake up and it's up to you. I'm scared to death and hanging on to every single breath, afraid I might wake one day to find out that you left in the hood. I can only love so far without getting that broken heart. So I'm laying it on the line, right from the very start. It can hurt, it can hurt. It's not all peaches and cream, trusting someone new, but you got something that makes me want you. I gave you the power to hurt me. You have my heart, but that don't mean nothing. You have the knife and I'm standing right in front of you. You can make me bleed, so be careful what you do. Whether I wake up and it's up to you. And if I start counting now, I wonder how high I'll get before your name's on the list of people who let me down. I don't mean to be a deadbeat dad, but I don't think I'll live to see the day when somebody sticks around. So
sum up, homeschooling is a great opportunity to practice, to explore music, to gain all of those skills that you'll need to be a wonderful person enjoying music, a wonderful musician teaching others, learning more about the science and history of music and how it works, and sharing that with others, writing about it, composing your own things, becoming a songwriter, joining with others in ensembles, and recording as a sound engineer, or just recording without any writing or composing, mixing things down and sharing with others on your own internet. But you'll need to do a lot of free exploring about how you want to put together your career, and none of your practice time goes wasted. So I encourage parents to find the best help, the best teachers. There's lots of advice online about different instruments, not always helpful. So check with your local music store, your local college, and the teachers who are teaching there. You want to have the very best instruments that you can afford. I know it's a lot of time and investment, but even if your child doesn't become a musician in life, none of that is wasted again, because they're going to enjoy everything that they've gathered for themselves to use and enjoy. It's a great profession.